we have given up ground as a church, as an ecclesia, as a body of Christ. We have given it away. It's not been taken from us. We have given it up.
Babylon has no authority. When I talk about schemes like registration, schemes are created out of greed, envy, and fear.
We've read the end of the book. We know where the victory lies, and it lies in Jesus Christ.
This is what I want to do with fear. Okay? We don't need it anymore. We are the ecclesia.
This is a clash of two kingdoms.
Because there is a science to registration. Did you know registration is an ancient thing?
The Bible is replete with language that is martial, with language that is governmental, with language that is political.
By the way, that word religion doesn't mean Buddhist, Islam, doesn't mean any of those things. It means Jesus freaks and holy rollers.
We can mix church and politics, because my Bible tells me that the government will be on his shoulders.
Hello, Levitical Kingdom privateers, and welcome to the C2K report. And don't adjust your screen. Randy is still recovering. He is home. But he is still recovering from his, basically it was a surgery that he had. So still be praying for Randy, please, for quick and ultimately, great healing and recovery for him. But today I've got a wonderful substitute teacher scheduled, and I want to introduce him a little bit to you. He is the owner, operator, facilitator, administrator, I don't know what other words to use, of Stone's Throw Acres that we have been running ads about here on the C2K report. Glad to have him. His name is Matt Stone. Matt, welcome to the C2K report.
Well, thank you. I'm usually referred to as the hired hand.
Hired hand.
By my boss.
I wasn't talking about in marriage. Yeah, that's great. Matt, really glad to have you. I don't know if you know this about me personally, but before we did the C2K report, before Randy decided to collaborate with me, I was doing Blog Talk Radio, and I was interviewing all kinds of, different people. And one of my most fascinating subjects, the one I'm fascinated about, is people that are doing things in the agricultural circuit, such as homesteading or farming of any kind, of any nature. There's things about it, Matt, that I'm compelled to see a little bit different than other people. I know you're like that too, and that's why I'm really looking forward to this conversation, because I've interviewed people in all kinds of genres of agriculture, and it's really easy to get pinned into a particular way of looking at things, and here in South Dakota, we're the kings of monocropping, right? we really are. So I'm really glad to have you. And I wonder, would you start off by helping the listening audience understand, where did the desire to do what you're doing and we'll get to what you're doing, but where did the desire come from to actually do farming, to actually have a homestead? Where did that even come from?
Well, I don't know that I could even point to one specific source where the desire came from. I just recall when I was even in grade school, high school, I just had this feeling that our food isn't what used to be. And I think part of that is because everybody was talking about supplements. I thought, this is foolish. Why do we need to be taking supplements when we should be getting it from our foods? because that obviously, if you had to take supplements, that means you're not getting it where you should be getting it from. But little did I know that that was actually going to be the basis for everything we're doing today. And it wasn't until until I had a major health change. I was diagnosed with cancer about 20 years ago, and completely changed our diets after doing some research and coming to find out that cancer is not the problem. It is a symptom. It's your body trying to get rid of toxins. And so we eliminated all sugars, completely went all natural foods, or whole foods, not natural foods. So meaning if it was in a package, we didn't eat it. So I say that with a little bit of tongue in cheek, because obviously when you buy meat, it's going to be in some sort of a package, right? So it wasn't processed or denatured. So that's where we started. So from there, we evolved into wanting to grow and raise our own food, knowing where it came from, what went into it, into realizing that, and this whole time we're doing more education, learning, and realizing that, what I was sensing back in grade school, high school, really is true. We've really have destroyed the health of the soil. And so in order for us to raise nutrient dense foods, we had to fix the soil. So most people homestead, farmstead, whatever you want to call it, do market to table businesses because they're selling foods. To raise and sell food is I call it a byproduct of what we're actually doing. Our mission is to restore the health of the soil 1 acre at a time. And just raising that food is a byproduct of it. It just naturally occurs.
And I was going to ask you that question. What is your mission at Stone's Throw Acres? And you've already addressed it to what is it, change? Say that again.
Improving the health of the soil 1 acre at a time.
1 acre at a time. So there must be some education behind that, where you help people to understand what it's going to take to improve the soil.
Yeah, and so where we did start out with the intent to raise the food for ourselves, maybe eventually sell the food, we were kind of pivoting the business to more what they would call agritourism, or excuse me, education, information. So we're starting an actual community. So it's a stone's throw community, and it's all about raising all natural foods, or all nutrient-rich foods naturally. And so I stress it's not organic, because in my mind, and I'm not saying organic is bad. That's a great place, especially if you're not farming or anything. That's a great place because you can at least have some reliability that it's not completely, what would you say? Well, that it's, you're on the right path, put it that way. But the thing about organic is that you can still have certain sprays involved. When we had looked at going organic, one of the things that we sat in on, they gave an example, is that if you have your garden, and if deer naturally cross there, you'd have to do stuff to prevent the deer or encourage them to go around your garden. And to me, I just thought, how is that organic?
Yeah.
And I understand they didn't want the deer's feces and urine on the food. I understand that, but great. I'll make a path right through the garden so the deer still travel through, but they stay on the path. But so I went all natural. That means more to me.
Yeah.
You know what? Your question went right off the rails. What was your question?
Well, I was talking about educating people on how to restore the health of the soil. For you to accomplish the mission that you've stated.
Yeah.
Yeah, right.
So we're forming a community, and that's basically what we'll be doing. And we'll still have food available for people to buy, but that's not our primary objective. That's more in the vision side of the business, but our mission is to heal the soil 1 acre at a time through the education information. And I've had a number of people who have expressed interest in joining that community. And so you don't have to be a producer. You can be a consumer to join that community. And so we're getting away from really promoting the annual crops like people tend to think about in their gardens. We're not abandoning them, but we're going to even more or further in the fact that we'll use perennials as our basis, and the annuals will be mixed in with them. I know some people don't like the annuals, but in my mind, God created both of them. So there's a reason to have both of them.
Right. Yeah, interesting. Very, very interesting. I too, in the gardening that that we do here, I'm in the city limits, if you will, of a small town in South Dakota. But when we define small town in South Dakota, 1,300 sounds kind of big for South Dakota. So we're kind of a bigger town of South Dakota, but with the property that we manage and we have access to and administrate, we're on that trajectory too. But and Matt, maybe you can address this. We've gone to a place now where if it's already growing here and it's a useful thing, rather than plowing it out or getting rid of it in order to bring something else in, we utilize what's there and then we add to it, around it, in kind of a permaculture type of fashion. Is that what you're talking about, Matt? Or?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, a friend of mine once, we were having a conversation and he said something about a weed. I said, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't see anything but plants out there. There is no such thing as a weed. Mm-hmm. And usually you would say that a weed is a plant that you don't want in that spot. But I've come to realize that there's a reason why that weed is in that spot. So take advantage of it and capitalize on it.
Right.
So absolutely. Now, with that said, if I'm restoring a pasture for the first time and the thistles take over, I actually let those thistles grow. But when they start blooming, that's when I cut them. But I do not spray them. I want their root in that soil because they're doing a lot of good to restore that soil. So I do take measures to curb certain aggressive plants. Yeah. Sure. And the thing I've learned is, one of the animals that we have are sheep. They'll eat plants that the cattle don't, and vice versa. But very beneficial plants like, say, mullein, they don't touch them. But mullein is a very important plant from a medicinal purpose. So we capitalize on that. When we find a mullein plant, we will go so far to actually fence around it so nothing disturbs it.
Sounds like my wife. Yeah. Yep, for sure. Very good. So, Matt, tell us a little bit about your operation. What things are you doing? I know that you're growing protein. Can I say it that way? You're growing protein.
Yeah.
But can you explain a little bit about your operations and the diversity that you have? Because you've got a lot of things going on.
Yeah. So it's, as far as protein, animal protein, that's sheep, rabbits, and chickens. And we're trying to do it in as much natural as we can while controlling, so we don't have complete chaos. And we do still want to be able to, for example, the rabbits, you just don't let them go run wild because you'll never find them again. The sheep, they are rotated, and what it's mimicking is if they were out grazing and they had full access anywhere they wanted to go. That's what it's mimicking. But since we've got limited land, we have to manage their patterns. And within, let's see, I believe this will be our sixth, maybe seventh summer. We have taken a row crop land that had nothing growing to a very diverse pastures with no amenities given to it. And we didn't plant anything. So we've got clover, I'll just say legumes and grasses, variety of them growing there, and we didn't do anything. And I truly believe it's because of the sheep. Because as they eat, of course, they leave behind whatever their bodies aren't going to use. The soil uses it. And so that we can get adequate fertilizer across the entire ground, as opposed to if they were just roaming it wild, however, they may end up heavily putting their manure one place other than where, instead of spreading it out. Plus, they may pick certain plants more than if let's say for me and you, like we have a choice between hot dogs and a roast ribeye. Which one are we going to eat first? Well, I'm going to eat the ribeye first. And if I always have ribeye available, I'm going to eat ribeye. Well, if I run out of ribeye, I only have so much ribeye and I get hungry, now I'm forced to eat the hot dogs. And these are good meat hot dogs. They're not the fake ones. It's the same principle here. They're forced to eat a little bit of everything, and then they move daily. We're in the rotation that I'm doing right now. I'm moving them daily. In the very beginning, they actually might have gotten moved 3 or 4 times a day, just because of the amount of forage that was not available for them. And what I was trying to achieve. So that's the all natural part. The rabbits, they're the same thing. They're out in what we're calling the rabbit tractors. They get moved daily to new grass. They have fresh vegetation to eat. We do supplement that. During the winter, they go inside. For obvious reasons. We don't want them. Well, I'm not fearful of them freezing. Their fur keeps them more than warm enough, but it's the baby rabbits, the kits, to get enough rabbits to help feed the family. And then of course chickens, but the pasture is the basis for all the animals. Putting them out there, not in a confined yard or building as much as possible. Obviously during the winter, depends on what happens. We may bring the sheep in, and I've got a yard where I would put them.
Welcome to Stone's Throw Acres. If you enjoy nature as God intended it, you'll feel right at home. Here on this ranch, work and play are one and the same. We enjoy working in and with God's nature, not against it. We wouldn't be telling you the truth if we said it was easy, but the fruits of our labor are worth every ounce of effort. We are excited to show you our little ranch. Join us at www.shopyourfarm.com and find the store at Stone's Throw Acres. There, we will supply you with nutrient-dense foods at a fair price. Here at Stone's Throw Acres, our mission is to work with and not against God's nature to restore the soil's health and give life-giving properties. As we achieve this mission, we work towards our vision in providing an opportunity for all people to have nutrient, natural, dense foods at a fair price. Come to Stone's Throw Acres today at shopyourfarm.com. And you do everything there on the farm, Matt? Or is there some things that you contract out?
No, we do everything here as far as raising the animals, you mean?
All the way to the table, you process them too?
Yeah, well, if people want us to process them for them, we'll do that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. We have the facilities for it. Some people want to do it themselves. It gets down to those, again, people who want to maybe get to this, but they just don't have the resources. They try and do as much as they can. But once they purchase the animal, if they want us to do it, yeah, well, we're more than happy to do it for them.
So let me go into a subject that we can skirt around or do whatever, answer it however we want to. But this is the C2K report, and we talk about the Babylonian system as opposed to the kingdom. So when we look at Babylon and we see the structure that they've set up, they have gatekeepers all over the agricultural arena. And one of those gatekeepers, or I guess the main one, is the United States, the USDA.
Yeah.
Right? The USDA is a major gatekeeper of all things agriculture that want to impose rules, protocols, regulations on anybody who participates in their particular, their particular arena, whether or not they want to be certified by the USDA. They still try to impose it. So my question to you is, most people, when they want to get into some form of agriculture, they don't have the capital, they don't have the cash, they don't have the funds to be able to do that. So they run to Daddy Babylon, who's got all kinds of programs out there, and if you do this, we'll give you this. Those kind of programs exist out there to let people, get into agriculture, but then they're stuck into a contract for years and years and years, and it becomes very difficult to get out. How does and this is just a conceptual thing. I'm not asking you how you do it, but let's talk a little bit about how it can be done. How can somebody who's coming, right at a beginner level, go into agriculture without having to go through those gatekeepers and those programs? Have you thought about this? Is there a way?
Absolutely. So it really starts with what you consider to be agriculture. So, and I've got, well, back when I was younger, I had a lot of younger friends that wanted to get into agriculture, but now we're all older. But the first thing they went to was the Young Farmers or New Farmer program, which gave them because they wanted to go right into farming, say 100 acres, put some head of cattle out there. But in fact, I know one gentleman who has just had his first success in what I would consider farming, and that's his backyard garden. He has turned his entire backyard into a garden, and he is selling produce to restaurants. That's still farming. That's still agriculture.
Right.
So it depends on what you call agriculture. And I know people who are taking 2 to 3 acres, and they are easily gross revenue is around $200,000, and they're not doing it under any programs. It just depends on what you want to do, how big you want to get. My perfect example here is I'm trying to do this with no equipment. If I had to bring in equipment, I try and find something else to do other than if it's a hand equipment. One example, and there's a lot of people doing this. So if anybody's out there listening, if you've ever heard of Greg Judy, perfect example. I mean, I've read a couple of his books and listened to his videos quite often, and he's a big proponent of not buying equipment. And he's a well-known I guess you'd call intensive, or what is it, management intensive grazer, or rotational grazing person down in Missouri. But his biggest thing is, when you're starting out, don't go buy equipment. And so if I need hay, I only purchase hay for winter emergencies. I don't buy any equipment. I have fought that urge to go buy haying equipment. I'll buy the hay, and then I don't have to store the equipment. I don't have to maintain the equipment. I don't have to borrow the money. So again, it goes back to, what do you consider to be agriculture, and what do you want to do? So it is possible. And even if you want to farm row crop 1,600 acres and have 200 head of cattle, it's possible, but build up to it. One thing I will say, God has always provided for me. When it was time, he provided it. Yeah, and the whole key is, what is your definition of agriculture? And if you have a vision as to what you want to do, if it's farming 1,000 acres and having 200 head of cattle.
Yep, you're here.
Okay, good. 200 head of cattle. That's maybe your end goal. Start smaller. Something that started at a place that you don't need to borrow the cash. You don't need the financing from Babylon. I will tell you, when my father-in-law, he's farmed all his life. He's retired now. But one thing, when I and my wife first got married, we were having a conversation, and he said his saddest day in farming was when he accepted that first check. He knew he wasn't going to farm the way he wanted to farm. He had to follow the program.
Mm. Wow.
And that's his words. That's not me talking. That was him.
Yeah. Well, that's I can agree with that. I've never participated in a program before, but I have lots of. We can go a lot of directions, Matt, about all kinds of different things. And I was going to say, I'll offer another thought on that. Oftentimes, Matt, as families, as we grow up, and as we, as we start to move out of the house, right? We lose touch with the house that we grew up in, and we all start to try to do our own little things out there. I guess one of the things that we teach here at the C2K report, and I do through the legislative classes that I teach, I try to get families to start working together towards a goal, because more often than not, families have the same visions and goals, because you're growing up in a system, in whatever system that you're growing up in, that system most often has the same likes and dislikes, because you're being raised up, by people that are trying to raise you up to be like them. So you've got the same likes and dislikes, and if we could just learn how to take that structure and work together towards a common goal, we can reach a greater, let's call it, climax at an earlier time, instead of working our entire lives away to get to a certain place. Working together just seems like a much quicker way to get there.
Right. So in an earlier life, I did financial planning with people, and most of my clients were small business owners. So part of that financial planning was, okay, what about the family? Are they going to come in, whether there's a farming operation or not? Well, the kids are going to take it over. Okay, have you talked to them? No, I know they will. But like you're talking about the house and getting them involved in it, I think that's the key here, because most of the kids nowadays aren't interested in what the parents are doing, because one, you did. I think the family is not as close as it used to be. So did the kids participate in that? Well, some kids, okay, growing up, some kids just aren't going to enjoy the farming. It's not their personality. But one of them is. But maybe they have a different aspect on the farm that will uh, resonate with them. But it's all about doing it at an early age, working together, as you say, and really identifying where everybody's trait or skills are and interests are. Yeah.
I think we've done ourselves a tremendous disservice in public education. We promote and preach this individualism thing. You know, hey, you can be whatever you want to be. You just put your mind to it. You can be whatever you want to be. So we get kids dreaming of becoming, this or that, and usually it's associated with how much money you can make, right? Because that's the driving facilitator with so much of the what's called the American dream, right? Is how much money can I make? So kids get dissuaded from following the shadow or falling into the shadow of whatever that particular gift or the boy, I can't think of the word, but the giftings that their family has, because every family's got gifts, every family's got things that they're called to, and instead of trying to get away from that gift, is there something within that genre that you can get excited about? More often than not, there will be something within that genre you can get excited about. And you could join in.
Mm-hmm.
It just seems like a much more effective way to go. But yeah, like I said, I think we've done ourselves a tremendous disservice in the way that our education system has validated this concept of individualism.
Silver is hot. It is real money. It is God's money. So I encourage you to get your Liberty Dollar account now. The big commercial price manipulators have thrown everything that they had at silver over the past 5 days, and still the silver price remains strong. Get your silver account now. Help Liberty Dollar folks get to the 3,000 mark. My whole family has an account, and I encourage you to please get yours now. We need you. You'll be really glad you did. Watch what happens with silver. Thanks.
Right. And when somebody, I also do business coaching, so people trying to figure out what they are wanting to do. Quit looking at the money. Think about what you enjoy doing and what you're good at. And in my mind, God is giving you that skill sets. So what if you can figure out something to do with those? That's obviously what you want to be focusing on. The money will come. And I always tell people, who would have ever thought you could make millions skateboarding? And look at Tony Hawk. And I don't have to tell them who I'm thinking about, but they get it.
Right.
But the money will come. You just focus on what you're good at and what you enjoy doing.
Right.
Your passion is what will do it.
Right. So let's go back now. You were talking about the different things that you have to offer at Stone's Throw Acres. Did I see? And I actually know for a fact that you have honey. So are you a beekeeper?
No, that means to be a beekeeper would indicate that you possess them.
Okay.
They're here on their own.
Okay. I see where you're going. So you contain the ones that are there on their own somehow?
Yeah. I mean, I provide them. They're free to leave whenever they feel like they want to leave. Like I tell people, I just set up a nice place, and when they show up, they give me honey in exchange for rent. So
nice. Okay. You
And
want
again, we're all about the natural side. Um, it, it, as humans, we want to be in control. We think we know better. I don't know what the bees need. I mean, I can go in and tell, okay, they are suffering from, well, one year there was what was called what was it, the thistle moth. And so it will destroy a soybean field overnight, literally. And so, of course, they sprayed. I noticed the impact on the honeybees right away. But the honeybees, I left them alone and they bounced right back. They knew exactly what they needed to do.
so can you go into that a little bit? I've never heard of that before. In all of the things that I've watched and all the people I've talked to, I don't know if I've ever heard somebody say, "I just set up a home for them. They pay their rent with honey." That's a very interesting way of looking at it. So, what does that look like? How do you do that?
Well, I go with what's called a horizontal hive, and I provide the frames and everything. And again, if it's a suitable hive, they move right in.
Mm.
And yeah, I'll face where one year there was a commercial hive down the road, and I assume it was those bees because I mean, there's one hive here, but he probably had probably 36, 48 hives in that one location a mile down the road. So, and it was a dry year, so the bees are competing for the nectar. Well, if you can find a hive that is weak, let's go steal their honey. So, I mean, regardless of what anybody thinks, bees are just like anything else. They're opportunists and they're looking to survive. And so they found this and they were starting to rob it. Well, I took measures. I stepped in. I narrowed down the entrance to help the bees that were there. So if it's a strong hive, it will defend itself. But I gave it as much help as I could by one, like I say, narrowing down the entrance, making it easier to defend. And once I realized it was pointless, um, what I did, and actually I knew my bees left because they swarmed around the house. They're in a cluster and they left. And then I could see a difference at the hive entrance and I knew they weren't in there. Well, then I'm going to compete with the raiding bees and take out the honey as much as I can. Because if they're going to steal it, I'm going to steal it.
Interesting.
So, yeah. And so if a commercial apiary, what they'll do is they'll do everything they can to keep their hives from swarming, because if that means they're going to make queen cells and they're going to increase the size of that hive, and then part of them are going to leave. So it does impact production. So I understand it. I get it. For me, production is not the primary factor here. It's keeping everything natural, and as depending on the year, they'll produce whatever they can. So that I'm not feeding them sugar water or anything like that. But if they want to swarm, fine, swarm. What I'll do, in fact, if I get a new one, I will intentionally keep the hive small. Because what people don't realize is when you get a swarm, that's the old queen, and a queen is only good for 2 or 3 years. So if you don't want to buy a new queen, you would intentionally encourage them to swarm, because it's the old queen that leaves.
Very, very interesting stuff. You know, I think, Matt, I'm discovering that we're more alike than I thought. But let me ask you this. So, what does it look like for you to? You sound like you're very observant of God's system. What is? give me a prototypical day. How does it go? Do you get up in the morning and just kind of observe things and adjust your day based on what you're observing, or how does it go?
Well, I would like to say the sheep never get out, but if so, we're all natural. I'm using electric fence to keep them where I want them, but occasionally they touch it, and occasionally instead of going backwards, they go right through the fence. So now it doesn't happen all the time because they can see it, but it's purely by accident that they go through it. Rarely do I ever have to diverge from what I was planning on. And so our biggest chores around here, as far as the animals are concerned, is rotation, moving them to a new spot, whether it's the chickens, the rabbits, the sheep, whatever it is. So, and that most of that happens in the evening is when we rotate them. What I will do, especially at the end of the day, especially if it's a rough day, is I will actually just go out and watch the sheep eat. I find that to be very relaxing, or else I might sit by the hive and just watch them, watch what they do. I mean, I've got a lot of videos of the bees sitting there, and it's called the bee dance. And I'm not talking that waggle that people talk about, telling that they say that they're telling the others where the honey or the nectar's at. They'll sit there and they'll go back and forth like a line dance on the entrance of the hive. And nobody has told me what they're doing. Can tell me what they're doing.
So what do you think they're doing?
It almost looks like they're cleaning.
Really?
Yeah. Because somebody explained to me that bees can actually see in ultraviolet. And that's how they can find navigation when the sun isn't shining. The clouds are out. It's not the sun that they navigate by. They navigate by ultraviolet. And I think they're putting a certain ultraviolet pattern on their entrance.
Interesting.
Yeah, because all the flower colors give off a different ultraviolet light.
I always wonder how scientists find these things out. Do they take the eyes off of the bees and look through them themselves and go, "Hey, look, I could see."
Right.
Yeah, it's one of those questions I always have. Maybe that third or fourth question when I get to heaven, I'm going to ask God. I'm going to say, "Can you explain to me how scientists?" Anyway, that's one of the.
Yeah.
So, I'm very curious about this. I have been in so many debates with farmers who do artificial insemination. Because to me, how do you expect God to give you the increase when you're robbing him of his ability to increase? Right? You're taking the responsibility of increase on yourself. You're not giving him that opportunity. Now, you don't have to answer the question, or you could say whatever you want to say, and you could even say, "Rick, you're crazy. Artificial insemination's great." Okay, whatever you want to say it. You're free to do that. But how do you handle the management of your sheep when you're out there? Are you looking for a particular? Are you looking to better the breed of your sheep through some kind of mitigation process, like artificial insemination, or how do you manage your herd in that way?
Yeah. Well, I don't use artificial insemination, but what I do is I keep the ram separate from the does or the ewes. Because for me, the last thing I want is to go out and have a lamb born in January or February.
Gotcha.
Right now, I understand why people do that, and every house has to decide for themselves, right?
Right.
Whatever you want to do, that's not for me. But so I keep them separate until December. That way, they're lambing in April, May on green grass. I have just found much fewer problems than in January, February. Now, a friend of mine, he does it in January, February, and I asked him what's the reasoning. Well, because he's getting ready for planting. It's just him. He doesn't have enough man hours. So, well, what? That's fine. Whatever. Each house decides for themselves, right? But so each year we decide which ones that we need to butcher because they are a source of food for us. And so we will look at them and determine, especially if one comes out and you can, so for example, they have problems with their hips. That would be one that we would cull, as they say. One, because we have to make a decision which one's going to be food. The other one is what kind of life is that one going to have as well. And so we take it and say, okay, and we do pray about it. It's like, okay, is this the one, or is this one that we need to take? Have you, Lord, provide this for food? So, yes.
Great. Well, I'm just trying to pick into your mind a little bit and see how your process goes in your mind, because when somebody says all natural, right? You wonder how far they take that expression, right? Because there's different grades. You can take that to the umph degree.
Right. Well, and we always say we're all natural, but we do step in. And for example, is it all natural for the sheep to be in, paddocks? Well, no, but we only have a limited amount of land that we can do. Right. It's not realistic for the rabbits to be breeding and having kits all winter long out in the snow and the freezing weather. So we do give them a building to go into for that. And you might ask, well, why do you do it during the winter? Why not breed them during the summer? Well, because Mother Nature is fantastic. I learned that a male rabbit goes sterile when you have consecutive days over 80 degrees.
Wow. Okay. That's a new one to me. Okay.
Yeah. So if we could put them in a building in air conditioning, and then we could breed them during the summer, but how natural is that?
Wow. Okay. Yeah. So, but Matt, I love your responses, because I try to go back, the one patriarch that we run across in the scripture that God accounted unto righteousness was Abraham, all the way back, okay? And it was said of Abraham that God increased his herd. God gave him the increase. And he is the God who gives and takes away, right? So I like to try to model my thinking in that fashion. And the way that you're managing or administrating the land that God has given you, the animals that are under your trust, the plants that you grow, all that stuff, super important. And I love how you process your thinking about each one of those areas. So because ultimately what dictates whether you're having a successful or unsuccessful season is going to be what produce comes from it, right? What produce comes from your whole thing that you're managing, and the way you manage it is what's going to ultimately dictate whether it's successful or not. And that's Abraham faced that same question. He had to manage it in according to the ways of the Lord.
Yeah, and people don't realize that God actually gave Israel very specific instructions on farming and agriculture. Leviticus is full of it.
Right. Right. And I don't know that, you know, any of that has really changed.
Right.
Yeah. So it's yeah, it's just a fascinating thing to talk to somebody who has the experience. How long you been doing this, Matt?
We've been on this property for I think this is our 7th summer.
Seventh summer.
We got started with broiler chicken, or no, actually egg layers, which is considered the gateway animal for homesteaders.
Right. Right. Yeah, we've seen all those memes about that.
Right.
So quick question on that. Have you had successful brooding with your flock of chickens? Are they called a flock? Is that the
Yeah.
is that okay? So have you had successful brooding or not?
We've tried several different breeds, and the breed that we settled on was the Barred Rock, the Plymouth, or not Plymouth. Yeah, I think it's called the Plymouth Barred Rock. I just call them Barred Rocks. They're the gray and black striped birds, and there's several different breeds out there that look like that. But they're the ones that we have found that handle the cold weather the best, and we usually get probably about a half dozen hens to go broody on their own through the summer. In fact, last year we had like 7 or 8 of them. And as soon as all those chicks were born or hatched, they all gravitated towards one hen and the other hens left. It was the funniest thing to watch. One hen, and you got like 13, 14 little chicks running around chasing this one hen.
It's like like an adoption process.
Yeah, yeah. But we found that breed to be the one that seems to go broody the most often. And again, in a commercial aspect, you don't want them to go broody because it takes away from egg production. And I get it. Again, that's a choice that every house needs to make. But for what we're shooting for, one of the things we're striving for is to become self-sustaining. And now if you talk to some permaculture people, they don't like the word sustaining.
Right.
But for my purposes, if you start with a flock of chickens, theoretically, if you can get to a system that you don't need any external inputs, that's sustainable.
Right.
And what did COVID teach us about supply chains? They're
Yeah.
delicate.
Yeah. Right. Exactly. COVID taught us a lot of lessons about supply chains. Still is to this day, because I work at a grocery store. We still have things that are out due to COVID.
Really?
Yeah, still have things.
Wow.
So it's very, 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 very interesting stuff. The reason I ask you about the brooding is I've been getting reports from different places that a lot of the new hybrid, chickens that are out there are, they've I don't know how you would take the brooding out of a chicken, but they just don't brood, and that's that's a really sad thing when you're talking about natural.
Right.
Right. So that's why I had to ask that question. So you have found some success with that. And see, to me, you talk about sustainable. If you don't have chickens reproducing chickens, how is that sustainable?
Right. So like I said, we try and do natural as much as possible. So depending on our success, so this year so far we haven't had but one go broody, and she didn't sit on the eggs long enough. But so depending on the situation, we do have an incubator to hatch the eggs. So I mean,
full disclosure.
Full disclosure. I mean, that's a big task to go 100% natural, and
right.
I'd love to go without electricity, but we all know that's hard to do, if almost impossible.
That's tough. That's tough. I might try it, but it's tough. All right. Well, so we've been at this close to an hour. I don't want to hold you up anymore in your day. I know you gave me a time frame, but it has been really fun picking your brain about this. Thank you for sharing with us information about your farm. Is there anything you'd like to tell people about how to reach you? Do you ship places, Matt, or is it for local markets only?
Well, we will ship, but what I've found out, and I'm still researching this, is it's very expensive if you get outside the what I would call this 5-state region. So it doesn't make it economical once you start throwing freight on there. So it is mostly what I consider to be local. What do we call local in South Dakota? 200-mile radius is local, is what I call local.
Right. You're 200 miles from anywhere in South Dakota. So yeah.
Right.
So how do people get a hold of you?
Well, they can go to our website, stonesthrowacres.com. They can learn more about us there. There'll be contact information there, and from there you can contact us, and we'd be happy to talk to you about our ministry and how we do operate on a private membership. So people who aren't members don't get access to the farm. You don't have access to the tours we give or any of the products that we have to offer. It's all membership. It's all to the glory of God.
Amen. And for those of you that are part of the C2K family, you're probably already on Shop Your Farm. Stone's Throw Acres is right here on shopyourfarm.com. Once you go into shop, you just double click on Stone's Throw Acre and you can see all the things that they have available. So, go for it. Check it out. A lot of good stuff.
And the private membership agreement is right there on the top right corner. The introductory membership is only $1. And then after that, you can pick between two different membership levels.
Awesome. And I've been asked to ask you this question, so I'll do it live on air here. Do you have supplies of honey available?
Oh yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
That was for my wife. I had to ask.
Yes. In fact, anybody who wants to come pick herbs, I mean, we've got medicinal herbs just growing wild all over the farm. Like I said, the sheep will tell me which ones those are because they tend not to eat them.
Yeah, I know that message was for my wife. So, okay, appreciate that, Matt. Appreciate that. So thank you again, Matt. I appreciate you and your wife, Janice. And I got to say this. I got to tell the story. I'm down at this conference, our first conference in Missouri, and this couple walks in. We're in this old mansion. Okay, we're in this old mansion. We're having a meeting, and this couple walks in, and they look like they're just a curious couple. So I walk up and I say, "Hi, I'm Rick," and they already knew me because they'd been watching the C2K report, and I looked at them and asked them, hey, so where did you come from? Irene, South Dakota. Really? You came all the way down here to meet me, and I'm just like, what, 30 minutes away from you, Matt?
Something like that.
Yeah, it's crazy. Pretty fun meeting you there, though. I appreciate you folks, and I love getting to know you and the skill sets that God has given you. And there's a lot of people across this ecclesia. They're very thankful that He sent you our way because of the classes that you provide. So thank you, Matt, for everything that you do. And I'm going to give you a chance to say a final word.
Well, I would just say I'm equally happy that he has sent me your way. As C2K and the Ecclesia has definitely been a big part of our lives and where we're heading.
Amen. So with that, unless you have a poem you want to share with us.
I'm not a poem type of person.
I just had to go there. I did that for Randy because we miss him.
Yeah. I'm a numbers person. Literature is not my strong suit.
Okay. Well, I understand.
I appreciate it, but it's not my strong suit.
I hear you. Well, so I'll just say it this way. Thank everybody for coming. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and share this with as many people as you know. Topics like agriculture, permaculture, farmsteading, all the stuff we talked about today is popular. So go ahead and share this with everybody that you know that's into this. Help us to present and sustain the kingdom. And everything that we do, as always, here on the C2K Report, it's all about the blood.
If you've been watching our videos, you recognize the importance of becoming healthy. That's why we offer a team building opportunity that allows each one of us to become members and to listen and be invited to special meetings. Our membership access options are 1-hour sessions, a monthly membership, a yearly membership, to allow us to have one-on-one sessions. Benefits of those memberships are one-on-one consulting, weekly discussion groups, food demonstrations, guest speakers, and exclusive videos and resources. We're excited about you wanting to be. Well, that's why you're watching this video. So feel free to contact us by going to the Contact tab and reading the stipulations there before you send your information. We know that you're excited and want to go and get healed. That's what we're here for. We are God's counselors in regards to your health. Your health is important to you as it is to us. We want to give you a fighting chance. So please look over what we offer on our website, read through, then check our membership costs. They're simple. And how expensive is health? Disease or dis-ease is more expensive than health itself. We hope to hear from you soon.